Hello everyone, I'm Sophie and I'm currently at Kechara Forest Retreat, Bentong, Malaysia. This is the book that I'll be sharing from, Unleashing Buddhanature, Personal Accounts of Those Touched and Reformed through the teachings of His Eminence the 25th Sam Rinpoche. Today I'll be doing the story by Chua Su Ming, page 152. Enlightenment through scrubbing floors and other adventures. So this is a picture of Su Ming. Right. Enlightenment through scrubbing floors and other adventures. Chua Su Ming. Here's a short story about her. Chua Su Ming had been spreading the good word for Bacardi Martini Malaysia and L'Oreal Malaysia as their head of marketing when she realized what she really wanted to spread was kindness. In 2008, Su Ming decided to join her guru, His Eminence the 25th Sam Rinpoche and Kechara, in benefiting others, and have never looked back since. She is now the Director of Marketing and Public Relations for Kechara. And here's her story. The first time I met Rinpoche in 1992, he gave me a pendant. It had a holographic image of Manjushri, the Buddha of wisdom, and like any teenage girl, I was fascinated by the pretty gift. While I was used to meeting monks, my family was Taoist Buddhists. Most of them only gave me blessed string bracelets. I remember secretly thinking to myself that this Tibetan Lama was cooler than the rest. Perhaps this was why his advice stuck with me. When he gave me the pendant, Rinpoche told me to stick close to my parents and take care of them, especially my mother. I was 14 years old. It was a year later that Rinpoche's words finally made sense. When I was 15, my dad was diagnosed with liver cancer. Within 3 months, we had lost him to the illness. As the carefree princess of a well-off family, my world came crashing down. The family's finances were uncertain, and we had to let our maids and drivers go. My mother, the pampered wife, had to learn how to drive at the age of 53. I witnessed how hard she worked to put the family back on track again. And although she no longer had time to learn Dharma from Rinpoche, his words resounded in my head. Eventually, we got in touch with Rinpoche again. I was preparing to leave for the UK to further my studies at that time. Before flying off, my family went for a Dharma session with Rinpoche. This time, while pointing at my mother, he told me that I would never understand how much my mother loves me. She would never want any harm to come to me and would even take a bullet for me just so I could be safe. Then he gave me a second piece of advice that would etch itself into my mind. Enjoy yourself in the UK, but keep your mind strong so that you can ward off temptation to engage in vices. Rinpoche's words kept me in check as I explored a new life 10,000 kilometers away from home. It was the time of the 1997 economic crisis, and the ringgit had shrunk so much that the pocket money I was getting from my mum was barely enough to cover my expenses. There were many times when I, desperate for a windfall, was tempted to take a chance on gambling. It looked like such an easy way to earn money. But Rinpoche's words would float into my mind, and the thoughts of gambling went poof. After 2 years with a bachelor's degree in business management in hand, I returned to Malaysia and joined the marketing department of an international alcohol and spirit company, an industry that by and large had killed my dad. At that time, I didn't see the connection between my work and my dad's disease. It was exhilarating to begin a career in such an intoxicating environment. I was spoiled to the nines, hobnobbing with world-renowned celebrities, eating the finest foods while entertaining clients, and flying business class. But despite being surrounded by hedonism and living a glamorous life, my bosses reminded me to remain sober and clear-headed. I still remember their advice to this day. Know how you want to be perceived and start acting accordingly to earn that perception, even if it is the first day of the job. It was with this mindset that I was able to control my intake of, excuse me, excuse me, to control my intake of alcohol as people around me drank themselves silly. Yet staying sober in the midst of drunkenness meant that the effects of alcohol were all the starker to me. I witnessed the extreme actions of those who were wasted on wine. I looked at the rich and famous downing the expensive spirits and realized that very few of them were truly satisfied. Why weren't they happy, even though they seemingly had everything they needed? This puzzled me throughout my 8 years in the industry, but one particular question confounded me the most. Why wasn't I happy? I was on the fast lane to promotion. I was well paid, pampered, and I had a purpose to work towards. But whenever the question, what does this all amount to, popped in my head, I found myself drawing a blank. In 2007, I decided to leave the alcohol industry and took on a marketing position in the luxury division of L'Oreal Malaysia. At the same time, my family reconnected with Rinpoche once again, and I was volunteering for Kachara regularly. It was then that I observed the compassion of Rinpoche. This was before Kachara Soup Kitchen was officially formed, and a few volunteers and I would go out with Rinpoche at night to bring food to the homeless. The dirty, scrawny men and women who always ended up in people's blind spots would never escape Rinpoche's eyes. He would point them out to us, and sometimes we would still be straining our eyes to see them because the alleys they were in were so dark. When Rinpoche helps, he goes all the way. I remember when we were living in Bangkok for a time and we met an old lady who lived on the streets collecting trash. Every evening, Rinpoche would instruct us to bring her food and basic groceries. He also tried to help her find employment, which turned out to be a difficult mission as she was mentally unstable. In the meantime, we made sure that she always had something to eat. The lady was so touched by Rinpoche's care that she gave him a bag stuffed with items. When Rinpoche opened it, he discovered that it was full of knickknacks, articles cut out from newspapers, old cassettes, and various things she had probably picked up from the street. What seemed like worthless junk to others were probably her most cherished possessions, and she gave what little she had to Rinpoche as a sign of her gratitude. It was an emotional moment for all of us. When Rinpoche eventually left Bangkok, he sought the help of local friends to continue feeding her. However, after a while, she was nowhere to be found. Upon learning this, Rinpoche instructed us to place the items she had given him in a Buddha statue. That way, he said, she would always be protected. So I would end there and continue with Su Ming's story in my next session. So thank you for joining me. And as Su Ming shared, I would say almost all who had, achieved a lot in life, be it status, wealth, name, and whatnot, you know, it's really hard to find someone who is happy, truly happy with themselves or with what they have. And they are always constantly seeking. And so, as such, that is why a lot of them, the students of Rinpoche have found what Rinpoche teaches to be very applicable in our lives, and that kindness and compassion is really the way that we should, have in our life and practice to actually earn the happiness that evades us if we are, outside without practicing Dharma. So, and as such, you know, um, that's what Su Ming was sharing, that, she's always questioning, even though she was like a high flyer and, she's highly paid, and the bosses always, look at her for promotion. So join me for my next session to find out more of what Su Ming's story is about. So now we end this with a completion dedication in Tibetan. Jang Josen Jo Rinpoche, Mage Panam Ge Yushi, Ge Panam Pame Payang, Gone Gondo Pewasho, Tony To Rinpoche, Mage Panam Ge Yushi, Ge Panam Pame Payang, Gone Gondo Pewasho, Daso Jini Sapage Wadi, Tanandro Wagunaka Padang, Jepa Jesu no Santrapai, Tamping Imporindu Sase Sho, Kewa Kunto Yandala Madang, Drami Jogi Palalo Joji, Sadam Nangi Yaterazone, Doji Changi Ngopangatuso, Gewadi Nyududa Lama Sangyo Droyone, Drowachi Malupa, Dei Salagopasho, Joki Galposongapa, Chosunampa Pewala, Geki Samasi Wadan, Tunki Malu Sawasho, Dadam Sangi Dusandan, Rewa Songin Latene, Kewa Losan Trapai, Tampayu Riva, Gyushi, Ni Modeles and Dele, Ni Migunyan Deleshi, Nisentato Dele Pel, Kunchusungi Jingilo, Kunchusungi Odruso, Kunchusungi Trasi, Sho, Jesu Lama Kusan Rapting Chick, Namka Trini Chochoke Padang, Losam Tempe Drum is Subsungi, Droe Musatato Ni, Gyushi, Gary Rawi Koishin Kam, Pendan Dewa Malu Gyuini, Cherenze One Tensing Getsoi, Shabishiri Badu Deng, Gyushi. Home Tomping Otro Malupa, Dende Dala Sauduso, Godan Dempa Long Chotnam, Kepa Sushik Shukten Cell. So thank you for joining me, and please do join me as I finish off with Su Ming's story and you find out more of her experiences with Rinpoche.